What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we got a really cool piece going on the Jeep. Well, two of them, and I'm really excited about this one. CavFab sent us over the steering to throw it on the Jeep, test, film the install, and give it some real-world action. So to start, I wanted to thank them because I do appreciate their interest in helping me with this build. But other than my thanks to CavFab, let's get into the steering. All right, so we're looking at a 2-inch billet aluminum tie rod here for the JL and the JT. And then we're also looking at a 2-inch billet aluminum drag link here for the JL and the JT. Now, one big difference about steel and aluminum is that aluminum will bend back. Well, everything will bend if it goes to a certain extent, but on most case scenarios, hitting this on a rock or something hard is going to bend it back in place. Steel will not bend back once it bends. Another pro about aluminum over steel is that it's lighter. So in a lot of these Jeeps, we have a lot of heavy steel on them. Trying to minimize some of that weight in some places is going to help. I know that this isn't much, but every bit counts, right? Now, I like the drag link a lot. It's the same size, 2-inch as the tie rod, so it matches up well. So the first thing that we're gonna do to prep and get ready for this install is measure our steering on our Jeep, whether it's factory or aftermarket, and we're gonna take some measurements down. I measured mine to be 60 and 5/8. That is from this Zerk right here to this Zerk right here. I would not recommend putting them on the bolt measurements because obviously it is a joint, so it moves. The only thing that wouldn't move in the measurement and be in the same place is going, well, if the Zerk fitting is in the middle, is going to be right here in the middle. So I measured from inside to inside of those two holes on both of these, match them up as good as we can, and that will help for an easier install. So one thing about this tie rod that we want to make sure that we keep in mind, it needs to be even on both sides. You don't want to thread one end in farther than the other. You want both ends to be threaded at the same time. Get a couple of threads going on either side, and then have someone hold the opposite side or clamp it down. Hold the other side that you would be on and spin this bar either forward or backward. It's going to push or pull those ends together. It should get you to your measurement that you need evenly. There might be a couple little adjustments you need to make at the end, but it does work pretty much, most of the time. And as you can see, the passenger end here has two holes that are pre-drilled. That is so that you can run a steering stabilizer to the factory stabilizer mount. I really do like this. We are going to convert back to this. I have a flip kit on it now, but I don't think it's going to work with how thick the 2-inch tubing is going to be under there. So I'm just going to change this back to factory here. Same thing with the drag link. You're going to want to make sure that both sides are evenly tied in together. You don't want one longer than the other. You want that rigidity to be even across the whole bar. Okay, so dropping down in front of the Jeep, you can see the tie rod and the drag link clearly visible here. We're going to start by looking at the two nuts that hold the tie rod in. Looking at these nuts, they will spin off to a certain point, and then you will probably start spinning the stud inside. So you will need an Allen key set to hold the top of it and an open end wrench. I started off with the socket here, breaking them loose, and then I took the wheel off and went with the open end wrench and the Allen key. Once you've gotten that pretty loose, it should just slide out. If anything, it might take a couple of taps to drop it down. Let's move to the steering stabilizer next. Since I do have aftermarket steering and a flip kit on this, I am using a fork to pop out the axle side mount, which is swapped from a factory look. But if you were to have factory steering, you would just disconnect it from the actual axle on the other side. After dropping that stabilizer, taking the wheel off on the other side, and loosening the other tie rod end, it's time to drop the whole tie rod out. Pull that tie rod out and let's get to the drag link above. We are going to use the same Allen key and a open end wrench to remove this nut. It is going to come off the exact same way that the tie rod end did, so it should be a very, very similar process for you. After dropping that passenger side drag link down, we are going to go to the driver's side that's attached to the pitman arm. We're going to use a Allen key set just like we did on all the other parts and an open end wrench. This stud is going to test you. This is going to involve a lot of cussing and hitting the Jeep with heavy objects. No, seriously, the only thing that worked for me was dropping the drag link down, spinning it all the way around underneath so that it stuck out under the driver's side wheel well, and then hitting it with a sledgehammer near the actual stud. I do wish I had the footage of that, but unfortunately I don't. Here is the aftermath though. Those bushings were not a friend of mine. All right, jumping right into throwing the new drag link on, we are going to want to make sure that we have either someone else holding the other end or a jack. Once you get that thrown up through the pitman arm, go ahead and put the castle nut on and hand tighten it in. Moving to the other side, we are going to repeat the same process. We're going to put the stud up through the knuckle, and then we're going to put the castle nut on top, just hand tightening it for now. All right, next we're going to tighten this down with an open end wrench. Then we're going to find a torque wrench and tighten that castle nut to 70 foot-pounds of torque, then pushing the cotter nut through the top. Head over to the pitman arm and do the same thing, 70 foot-pounds of torque, and throw that cotter pin straight through the top of it. All right, so tightening everything up, we're going to take 2 big wrenches and we're going to hold that solid tube in the middle, and then we're going to take the other wrench with the nut and we're going to crank it down, tightening it up. This is pretty easy, other than it may kind of like turn while you're doing it, so just really get a firm grip on where you're holding the wrench and keep it tight. Heading down to the tie rod, we are going to get the jack to hold it up while we attach the driver's side. Hand tighten that nut and let's head over to the passenger side to do the same thing. We're more than halfway done and this thing looks insane. Look at how good it matches with the inner fenders and the front bumper. Almost finished here. Let's tighten this castle nut down to 70 foot-pounds of torque, and then we are going to put that pin through it. All right, last but not least, let's tighten the nut against the tie rod tube. So take your 2 big wrenches and do the same thing that we did with the drag link. One side is going to be reverse thread, so just remember that. For the Zerk fittings, pretty simple, screw them up inside, and then we're just going to use regular grease that we have sitting around the garage, although some of the guys at CavFab recommended Lucas, Red, and Tacky. After getting those fittings greased, I'm super pleased with the outcome. As you can see, everything fits very nicely and looks good too. Next step is get it aligned, and then I can see how this thing actually performs on and off-road. If you thought that this install was helpful, you can support the channel by subscribing and interacting with this video. You can find more content and behind the scenes extras on all platforms under the same name, CrawlHaus. Thanks for your time, everyone.